Morning, everyone. Hope you had a good weekend. It's been nice and sunny here in Melbourne. So we're going to continue on with our video series. So what we've done up to now is we've installed all the prerequisites for AX. We've installed SharePoint. We've also installed the databases now. So those are the two databases for AX. So we've got the database that will hold all the transactional and master data. And then we've got the other database, which is the model store database, which will hold the code base. So if we actually open the server, we log in and we go into SQL Server Management Studio, we can actually go in and see that all of those database tables have been created. So let's just go in and I can show you guys that. So if we connect on here, again, apologies for the small screen size. Databases. Let's expand that. And there we go. So that's all of our transactional data and master data, and that's all of our code. Baseline is used for an upgrade. So if you're upgrading from 2009 to 2012, you'd use a baseline. If this is just a plain install like we're using, we don't need to worry too much about baseline. So we can actually expand these and just see some examples of the tables. Nothing's been created. That's interesting. Anyway, it still should be fine. Unless it's because it hasn't been synchronized. No, there's all the tables for the model store. And I think when we synchronize the tables during the install, it will create the actual transactional and master data tables. Okay, so at least we know they're created, and we did get the successful message in the previous video, so we're good to go. So what we can do now is we can open our extracted AX 2012 installation media, and we can proceed to install the AOS as well as the client. So the AOS is the server. So what it is it's a Windows service. I think it's based on WCF, Windows Communication Framework. I believe that's correct. And what it does is that AOS takes calls from the client and then communicates with the database, does the business logic, all of the kind of intermediary steps. So if we go install Microsoft Dynamics AX components, we'll open up this. We'll just go next. We're going to accept all the licensing terms. Okay, and there is hotfixes. So let's just install that. And this might be, I think in the previous episode, when I extracted CU12 into the updates folder, I just extracted into the base folder. So what I've done is I've actually just made a CU12 folder there. I don't know if it's 100% necessary, but I prefer not to take a chance. So in the previous ways that it's worked, I've always just had subfolders with the cumulative updates. So good idea to do that. That way, if you get CU13 comes out, there's not a mass confusion. So good step to take. So I'm going to add or modify components. And I'm going to choose application object server and the client. Cool, so that's all we need for now. Look, I mean, obviously there's a whole bunch of other stuff here that we can install, and we'll get through to actually all of those during the course of this tutorial series. But just to get AX up and running, we want to go through a kind of very sequential, logical steps, and that's why we're just doing the AOS and the client for now. It's going to do a whole bunch of prereqs, and it's going to there's a few things I'm missing here, right? So for these ones here with the configure tick marks, these are always the easy ones to fix. You just tick them and then you click configure. And Microsoft will then, well, the installer will then go onto the web. It'll download them and install them, and then that'll clear those prereqs. The ones that don't have a configure button, those you're going to actually have to go into a web browser and download the package and install it. So let's see how we're tracking here. Sorry, the system's a bit slow this morning. Not sure why. There we go. Okay, so let's install those. If I close that, it should do a revaluation, and now we can actually see it's just the Microsoft chart controls and the Microsoft viewer. It does give you a link, so if we click this link, it'll open it up. As you can see, I'm using Chrome, and that's because if you're using Internet Explorer, you'd have a few issues with the download of this package. Just because Internet Explorer it locks down all the security, so downloading things, as we went through in the previous video. So we're just going to download MS Chart. Cool. We'll wait for that to come through, nice and quick, and we'll install it. We've read that. We're very happy with the license terms, and we'll go next. Cool, all done. Now what we need is, we need just that last component, which is report viewer. So we can click the link. This one sometimes gives you issues, so I think it's actually pretty good that we go through it together so you can see. So this one, you're going to download it, and as soon as you try and install it, it's going to give you a funky little error. So let's see if I'm correct. So there's our error. Setup is missing an installation prerequisite. Microsoft Systems CLR types for SQL Server 2012. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to type in here CLR types SQL Server 2012. No, sorry. Come on. System is not being very good to me today. SQL Server 2012 CLR types. Now it's going to be feature pack. So that is correct. Cool. Now if you click download, it'll give you a whole heap of stuff that you can download. So if you look over here and you go through this list, there'll be two CLRs. There should be a 64-bit and a 32-bit. Let's just check here. There's the 64 SQL CLR, SQL Sys CLR types, and it's 64. So I'm going to try that one. I know I've ran into problems sometimes where you've had mismatches between 64 and 32-bit, but I believe 64-bit should be grand. Well, let's test it, right? If it fails, then we know I'm wrong. So I'm going to download that. Yeah, Microsoft. Nice and slow. There we go. Cool. So we're back up and running. Okay. I'm not sure why. So, like I said in that previous mess. Yeah. Okay. So we're up. So let's install this. CLR types. Yeah. And we're going to accept the license terms. Yep, and we're going to install. There we go. Okay. So now, theoretically, that report viewer, Microsoft Report Viewer 2012, should work. So we downloaded it to, we're just going to finish that failed installation and then reopen the original file we downloaded. So let's go to downloads and double click report viewer. Okay. And there we go. So it works now. gonna finish that off, go back in here. So now we're gonna just go back to the AOS and client installation, and we're just gonna revalidate. So it won't actually allow you to carry on if these prerequisites fail, which sometimes can be a little frustrating because, yeah, you'll see later. Okay, so these warning messages we don't care too much about. Let's just carry on. So next, that's the name of my server. I'm going to choose it automatically chooses the database name because it finds it, chooses the baseline name, and you see, so if we were doing an upgrade over here, we'd register these databases. So since we're not doing an upgrade, we're just going to leave it blank and click next. Cool. We're going to leave these as default. If you start changing these, which sometimes you need to in a production environment, it starts adding a lot of complexity. What happens then is anytime you do any configuration, any installation or further services, you're going to have to always just remember what those ports are. So for a single server, it's absolutely fine to leave them as what they are. Indeed, it's recommended, so that way you kind of minimize the complexity of future components. Okay, so remember I created all those service accounts in one of the previous messages. I'll just do a quick recap. An Active Directory, users and groups. I created an AOS account, I created a Business Connector account, and a Management Reporter account under AX Service Accounts. So these are now going to start being utilized. So I'm going to choose my domain, which is Kudu, and I'm going to choose the AOS account. I've set up that password as an administrative password, so all of those service accounts has the same password. So I'm going to enter that there. I'm going to go next. And then I'm going to choose, well, I'm currently in Melbourne, Australia. So I'm going to choose English Australia. And what this means is if you choose the country from where you're installing it from, there will be localized language files. So what that means is if something is referred to by a particular term in your country, AX will use that term. So for example, in Australia versus United States, certain financial terms are different. So whereas GST is utilized, or let's use an example of the United Kingdom versus Australia. So United Kingdom uses something called VAT, whereas Australia uses it's almost the exact same thing, but they call it GST. So if I chose language Australia here, every time I see reference to VAT, it would be called GST. Whereas if I chose the United Kingdom here, it would be represented by a language file that said VAT. So good to know. So yeah, also installation type, we're going to use it as administrator. And that's because I want to access the backend, like the Morphex development environment and all the fancy features. And I'm going to create a desktop shortcut, and I'm going to go next. It's going to then look at a few more prereqs. It looks like we're all good with the prereqs, except for Microsoft Analysis Management Objects. So let's go download that quick. Okay. So if we're just going to pause that, oh, okay, so there you go, it's come up. Yeah, sorry about the speed in this video. I mean, it was absolutely fine in the previous videos, but for some reason, it almost seems like the latency is quite high today. So yeah, let me see if I can resolve that before I go into the next video. Yeah, so I'm just going to pause it quickly while I try to resolve that. Okay, yeah, I think I've got a new VPN that I've been using. I think it might be causing an issue, so let's push on through. I'll resolve it offline, and hopefully it won't affect any of the future videos. So we're just going to install that quickly. So accept the license terms. Yeah, I mean, you could put your name in here. I couldn't really be bothered. And there we go. Cool. So that's all installed now. Close this over here. Wait for it to very slowly close. And now revalidate. Cool. So we're good to go. Let's click next. Okay. It's picked up all the hotfixes. That's part of the CU12. Okay. So those are the binary updates that it's going to apply. And now we're going to install. So click install. Okay. Now this is going to take a fair bit of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pause it. And then as soon as it's finished, I'll come back and resume the video. Actually, to be fair, from this is pretty much it, right? So this is the installation. If it fails, you're going to have to debug, and you'd probably need to just ask some questions in the comments, and I'll reply to them and help you if you find any problems. But I mean, I think this is good enough for this video. This is pretty much how to install it. If we've made it this far, it's very rare that the installation would fail. So I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. If you want to see how to then go through the next steps, join in the next video. If you want to subscribe and do all of that stuff, yeah, work away, up to you. But I think that's good for this episode. So yeah, if you have any problems, let me know in the comments. Good luck.